Oh, here we go. Good evening and welcome to the fastest half hour in the cryptid world, This Week in Bigfoot, the news show that scours the internet and the Bigfoot community each and every week to bring you the people, places, and stories making headlines around the Bigfoot world. Then we take it and wrap it up in a nice, neat 30-minute package. If it has to do with Sasquatch, Bigfoot, or the Wildman, trust me, we got you covered. Here's what we're looking at for episode 27. Otzi, the Iceman, may be much older than originally thought, and once again, cutting-edge DNA technology is leading the charge to find the truth. Mike Luci takes a look at the gene that got us all walking on 2 feet, Snowwalker's at it again with a brand new 2 minutes width, and Maryland researchers turn up some impressive trackways and nests. These stories and more Bigfoot news than ever thought possible, so you better grab a drink, settle in, and smash that subscribe button, because we're going to get at it. Let's go.
911, what are you reporting?
He's walking upright like a man.
With someone or something crawling around out here.
But he went back up the mountain.
Get somebody out there.
What's going on now, sir?
That son of a bitch is about 6'9", I don't know. He's all black and big. He is big.
We kick off this week with more news from the DNA front and a recent posting in the Sasquatch Chronicles blog, as we attempt to keep up with science and the giant strides currently taking place around the globe. From eDNA collections in Denmark to the Bigfoot DNA project in North Carolina, there's a lot going on. Researchers have determined their previous findings concerning the Iceman's ancestry were most likely wrong. Discovered in 1991, Europe's oldest known natural mummy, nicknamed Otzi the Iceman, was found in the Tyrolean Alps between Austria and Italy. Thought to have been around 45 years old when he died, Otzi appeared to have succumbed to a combination of lethal wounds, including an arrow through the shoulder and a blow to the head. But a new look into the Iceman's DNA reveals that his ancestors weren't who scientists previously thought. In 2012, scientists compiled a complete picture of Otzi's genome, which suggested the frozen mummy found melting out of the glacier in the Tyrolean Alps had ancestors from the Caspian steppe. That's the grassy steppe between the Black and Caspian Seas. But something didn't add up, as those thought closest to Otzi didn't appear in the genetic record in Central Europe until roughly 4,900 years ago. So in layman's terms, Otzi is just too old to have that type of ancestry, says Johannes Kraus from the Max Planck Institute in Leipzig. So Kraus and his colleagues put together a new genetic instruction book for the Iceman. The old genome was heavily contaminated with modern DNA, the researchers reported August 16th in an article for Cell Genomics.
As stated, the cause of the error was that the original sample had been contaminated with modern DNA. Not only have sequencing technologies advanced enormously since that first study, but many more genomes of other prehistoric Europeans have been fully decoded, often from skeletal finds. This has allowed researchers to compare his genetic code to that of his contemporaries. As a result, among the hundreds of early Europeans whose genomes are now available, his genome has more ancestry in common with early Anatolian farmers than any of his European counterparts.
As about 90% of his genetic heritage comes from Neolithic farmers, an unusually high amount compared with other Copper-Age remains, Kraus said. The Iceman's new genome also reveals he had male pattern baldness and much darker skin than these artistic representations suggest. Genes containing light skin tones weren't around until 4,000 to 3,000 years ago, when early farmers started eating plant-based diets, and didn't consume as much vitamin D from fish and meat as hunter-gatherers did. As Otzi and other DNA illustrates, the skin color genetic changes took thousands of years to become commonplace in Europe. People that lived in Europe between 40,000 and 8,000 years ago tended to have much darker skin, similar to people in Africa, which makes a lot of sense because Africa is where humans were thought to have come from, Kraus went on to say. We have always imagined Europeans became light-skinned much faster, but now it seems that this happened actually quite late in human history. So as you can see, mankind is constantly making changes to the genetic record, as advances in science continue to improve our ability to properly record history. So with yet another DNA story in the headlines, I don't know about you, but I feel that the clock is ticking faster than ever down to the day where science and DNA technology finally catches up to what hikers, hunters, and Bigfoot researchers have been saying for decades, that Bigfoot does indeed exist.
Humans reportedly gained the ability to walk on 2 legs around 5 million years ago. but how we exactly acquired that capability has been unclear until fairly recently. Researchers from the Universities of Texas at Austin and New York Genome Center at Columbia published a first-of-its-kind study on the genes that design our skeletons, marking the first time they were ever discovered. Scientists first studied fossil records of ancient human species to better understand the genetic factors that contributed to changes in their skeletal proportions. They examined the genomes and X-rays in thousands of modern humans using an AI program to study, process, and compare this data. Scientists then used that information to spot chromosomal regions that were tied to variations in 23 important skeletal measures. They identified 145 locations in the human genome that have been regulating the shape and symmetry of human skeletons, which helped them create the first map of genome regions that are responsible for the skeletal changes in primates leading to upright walking. It shows the genes that cause these changes were strongly supported by natural selection, giving humans an evolutionary advantage. These genes control the symmetry of each and every bone in your body, becoming the first piece of genetic evidence showing there was selective pressure on genetic variants that affect skeletal proportions. This is said to have kickstarted the transition from knuckle-based walking to bipedalism. The ability to walk bipedally contributed immensely to our increasing intelligence as it made our bodies more energy efficient, maneuverable, and suitable for traveling long distances. It also prompted us to become more creative with our 2 extra limbs, leading us to become better at handling or manipulating objects, making tools, and carrying goods. Assuming theories that Bigfoot can throw objects, knock on trees, or build stick structures are actually true, then it could be a sign that these intellectually enriching components of bipedalism that we just discussed could have had a much broader effect across all great apes, not just Homo sapiens. These genes could potentially help us narrow down our path towards finding that proverbial common ancestor, and in turn help shed more light on how something like a Bigfoot could potentially fit in our evolutionary backstory.
Bob Keenan, a senior project manager from Rising Sun, Maryland, has been researching Bigfoot for just about 6 years now. His interest was piqued after fellow researcher Michael Burkhart launched a Bigfoot page centered around Cecil County, Maryland on Facebook. There, Mike would share pictures of footprints and tree structures he would find in the woods. Bob wasn't a believer at first, but he decided to join Michael on a trip into the woods and see for himself what this was all about. Their first adventure into the woods didn't exactly go as planned, as the team quickly got lost. After trudging through the woods, attempting to follow a GPS and a creek bed as navigation, they came across an old logging road, one that hadn't been used in years. Where they stumbled across something amazing: 42 strange bipedal foot tracks in the middle of nowhere in mud and water.
So there's one there. Right here, it's a right foot. Okay. There's his left foot. That's 2. This is 3. This is his, I think this is right foot. Then up here a little ways. That's 4. That's a big one. And then right up here, that's 5.
Bob's reaction: he couldn't believe what he was looking at. He thought, wow, these things are for real. Since that day, their Bigfoot encounters have been piling up. Over the last few years, they've managed to find a couple of nests as well, similar to the ones found by the Olympic Project in Washington State, only maybe just a little bit smaller. They've also noticed some strange tree breaks and other anomalies in the woods.
I got it recording now. So something's definitely been sitting in here. But look, they broke off all this shit to plow it up over there.
One day last spring while flying a drone, Bob spotted an X-shaped pattern among some trees near the old logging road. This led them to what they call the Big Boy tracks. Tracks measuring approximately 16 to 17 1/4 inches long, 9.5 inches wide, and a stride length from toe to toe of over 6 feet.
Crossed it here. I'm gonna get wet. Yeah, there's a big left foot right here. Left foot. Then we got a right foot that we casted. Let me show these up here so everybody can see it. Okay. And then right over here, we got another track. Then we got the big ones. From here to there. You know, that's a big ass step right there. Unless it's something over here that I didn't see. So then you got this one. Then this one. And he steps up over top of this junk. Ugh. Hold on. I gotta send this to Mike. We got one right here, which coincides with these ones. You got that one and that one. Okay. And he steps up here. And watch this. He steps into there. Bring this up so you can see right where I'm going. He steps right to there. Then here. Then there. And come up here to the rocks. This part in the rocks. Where'd he go from here, Justin? He came across this, right?
They've also managed to collect these hair samples from one of the nests, which could be important information if it is indeed Bigfoot related and uncontaminated. Now, when I spoke with Bob last week about this segment, he told me that his Bigfoot research is the most exciting thing he's ever done in his life, and he wants us to understand that the Sasquatch family in his area is safe. He's not looking to hunt it or exploit it for money or fame. Now, we here at the show would like to thank Bob and the Cecil County Bigfoot team for sending us the photos and the videos for this segment. It's nice to see a complete set of evidence. Yeah, right, for once. And I'd like to remind you also, if you have a research team and you'd like to be covered on the show, drop us a line at thisweekinbigfootnewscast@gmail.com, and maybe, just maybe, we'll feature you on the show. So keep those Bigfoot adventures rolling, and good luck to Bob and his entire team this fall.
In this community, it's not uncommon for old alleged Bigfoot photos or videos to resurface and get a second or third wind. I'm sure some of the more well-versed researchers and enthusiasts out there are familiar with this most recent example that's making such a resurgence. In recent weeks, the Josh Highcliffe video, as it's called by some, has been making its rounds online, including getting some recent coverage in the New York Post. For those unfamiliar, this footage was reportedly taken back in 2013 in western Mississippi by a gentleman named Josh Highcliffe while he was hog hunting. It's been dubbed by some as the best Bigfoot footage ever and has garnered well over 1 million views since it was first posted on YouTube. This footage was previously analyzed by our friend, the Squatch detective Steve Culls, who took to YouTube in the wake of its recent rehashing and reiterated some critical, compromising details he uncovered about this footage.
So what we really need to know is who really is Josh Highcliffe. As we can see from his YouTube page, his account was actually created the same day he uploaded the video. And to date, there has been no other activity by Josh Highcliffe on the page. Not responding to comments, not posting new videos, nothing. We find Josh Highcliffe also on Facebook, and coincidentally, his page too was created on February 28th, the same day of the video upload to YouTube. So what we did do is find, through a Google search, Josh Highcliffe's name. But not as a person, but as a character in a 2014 television series called Beasts of the Bayou, which only aired 3 or 4 episodes. And the character was played by a gentleman by the name of Richard Louis Bosworth.
On top of Mr. Cull's findings, this Reddit thread came out about a year later, showing texts that were allegedly from Richard Louis Bosworth. He was the actor who played Josh Highcliffe in Beast of the Bayou, who apparently stated this footage was in fact fake and created solely for promotional purposes.
And of course, in the true aha moment, a gentleman by the name of Mike Kuehler reached out to Richard Bosworth, the actor who appeared in The Beast of the Bayou. And what Richard had to say was, yes, this is BS stage stunt for the show. Josh Highcliffe is a made-up character I portrayed in that Beast of the Southern show. There you have it. This is a hoax.
Now, we've established that this footage was initially posted almost 10 years ago, and it has a pretty airtight-looking case of debunking against it that hasn't been rebutted. So it still begs the question, why do these well-known photos and videos, some of which have essentially been debunked, resurface like this and get new life in this community? I actually chatted with Steve to get his thoughts on why this happens. Here's what he had to say.
Well, I would consider it a form of yellow journalism, is that when you have a slow news day, these newspapers certain reporters will start scouring. Depending on their department, they may be on the weird news department, so they start scouring for this, and they find this on an offbeat website, and boom, all of a sudden it gets posted, and it gets a whole new life to itself again. And that recently happened on the 19th in the New York Post with the Josh Highcliffe, Mississippi skunk ape video. Well, there's a number of things. Number one, you do have an influx of new people. I mean, this video is what now, 10 years old. October 28th is when it got posted on YouTube. So this thing's almost 10 years old. So obviously about every 2 to 5 years, you get a new influx of people that are novices. They don't know the history of the topic. And what happens is you start hoodwinking them again. And then we have to go back and say, no, that was a hoax, and this is the reason why. And then, yes, you do have people that, and there are channels on YouTube that will propagate any video as being real just for views and shares and monetization.
Whether it's because of a slow news day, signs of growth among participants in this niche field, or widespread denial towards highly touted photos and videos, the Josh Highcliffe footage is the latest example of how even something that's been debunked can and will continue to get new life in this field if enough time passes. All we can do is continue to raise awareness whenever it happens to make sure you, our viewers, stay informed and not biased on these matters.
It's time to check your watches, folks. We are officially halfway through episode 27, which can only mean one thing. It's the part of the show where we give content creator Michael Merchant, aka Snowwalker Prime, screen time to speak his mind and get what's ever bothering him off his chest. Here he is again now. Love him or hate him, this is 2 Minutes With.
Echo Station 3PA. Spotted an aerial walker. Aerial walker. Echo Station 3PA. We have spotted an aerial walker. Aerial walker.
So I took Bigfoot to the cinema. The guy behind us starts complaining that he can't see the movie. I said, what do you want from me? It's Bigfoot. The guy says, I know, but the least he could do is take off his hat.
I don't think I can do this anymore. I can't take any more of it. You are always so uptight. What are you upset about? You and your obsession. I can't take it. All you talk about is Bigfoot, Bigfoot, Bigfoot. That's not true. Sometimes I talk about chickens. I've never heard you talk about chickens. It's always the Bigfoot evidence. Look at this pristine evidence. You have to admit, I do bring you some pretty good evidence. No, you don't. That's the thing. You don't bring any good evidence.
Why can't you hear a pterodactyl when it goes to the bathroom? Because the P is silent.
Look, I'm just trying to keep you abreast of the weekly happenings. You should watch that half-hour series, A Week in Bigfoot. It's awesome. It's amazing. They have new evidence every week. The evidence is all questionable. Most of it's hoaxed. None of it's real.
I could have made $1 million. Bigfoot told me where he was, but I couldn't understand him. He was so cryptic.
You know, you're kind of like that Neil deGrasse Tyson guy making fun of UFOs when he hasn't put any time into investigating a subject matter, yet wants to offer up an opinion on something he knows nothing about. He's a learned man. He's the smartest guy in the room. Well, he can't know everything. This is true. He can't know everything. You would think as a scientist, instead of ridiculing eyewitnesses that are testifying under oath, he'd investigate the phenomenon.
A hunter's in the forest. He sees Bigfoot and Dogman wrapped up in a barcode. He says, what are you guys? An item?
Look, we're talking apples and oranges here. I've investigated this phenomenon. I've endured week after week of your evidence. Oh, come on. Endure, that's an awful strong word. Okay, suffer. Suffering through it is more like it. I think you're being just a tad dramatic. I don't think I'm dramatic. I think I'm having a nervous breakdown. Well, that's on you, not on me. I've been telling you for a while now you might benefit from some medication. I don't need medication. I need to stop talking about Bigfoot. Oh, come on. It's not that bad. You have to admit there are some intriguing pieces of video. I'll admit there are some intriguing videos, yes. Well, they are far and few between and are difficult to duplicate. Look, I honestly don't know why you're still a doubter when I've shown you the talking Sasquatches, both in Canada and in Russia. That amazing photo of the Sasquatch disembodied head. And who can argue with Patty's eyelashes and teeth? And then you have the Patterson footage, the holy grail of Bigfootery, hundreds and hundreds of verified, unquestionable tracks examined by experts and considered to be authentic. You can't consider this stuff to be authentic when you haven't even proven the existence of the darn thing. Look, I'm not trying to prove anything to anybody. I'm just here to have a good time. You don't have to be so mean. You are the one coming to me telling me that you've proven the existence of Sasquatch and you hand me off some dog shit piece of evidence. Look, you don't have to cuss at me. It's like I woke up and I'm in some kind of crazy cult. I don't know how I got there. It's not a cult. It's a group of scientifically minded individuals seeking the truth about Sasquatch. Is that what you call the Bigfoot community? Science-minded experts?
Bigfoot walks into a bar. The bartender says, we have a drink named after you. Bigfoot says, give me a bill. The bartender says, but you haven't ordered anything yet. Bigfoot says, my name's Bill. You said you had a drink named after me. The bartender says, no, the drink's named Bigfoot. Bigfoot says, my mistake, I'll have a Coke.
Oh my gosh, dude. Wow.
Backing up its promise to make reporting airborne phenomena easier, the Pentagon recently opened up a new portal on the internet for professionals to submit reports about UFOs, now officially known as UAPs. Arrow.mil, the website for the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, is still a work in progress, but will soon serve as a one-stop shop for all publicly available information related to Arrow and UAPs, Air Force Brigadier General Pat Ryder said during last week's briefing. Setting up the new website is just one sign that the UAP issue is gaining attention and credibility at the Pentagon.
And it is a step in the right direction, for sure. But on the other hand, it is something that has been mandated in the current defense bill that they should do. So they are really only fulfilling a remit that they have had for some time and are actually a little bit late on.
Earlier this week, Defense Scoop reported that Deputy Defense Secretary Kathleen Hicks has taken on direct oversight of Arrow and its director, Sean Kirkpatrick. The move was based at speeding up Arrow's development and the website launch after Kirkpatrick was less than cooperative and receptive at sharing information with the public. Arrow currently lists 3 UAP categories: airborne objects that are not immediately identifiable, transmedium objects or devices, submerged objects or devices that are not immediately identifiable,
vanished into the ocean.
Splash. When they say splash, that doesn't mean there was a physical splash. That means this object went into the water, or they suspect it did.
Arrow says that the Defense Department considers UAPs to be sources of anomalous detections in one or more domains: airborne, seaborne, spaceborne, or transmedium, that are not yet attributable to known actors or that demonstrate behaviors that are not readily understood by sensors or observers. In other words, shit we just don't know how it gets done. The website doesn't mention or suggest possible extraterrestrial origins for these UAPs. One of the reasons why government officials and lawmakers are becoming more concerned about the UAP issue is the fear that they may represent intrusions from the likes of Russia or China. Similar to the Chinese spy balloon which floated across the United States before it was shot down by a fighter jet. When the website is ready for prime time, it will serve as a secure channel for current and former government employees, military personnel, and contractors to register UAP reports.
The big complaint from people will be, look, this is for the government and the military. What about the public? There's still nowhere for them to report their sightings.
A planned reporting portal for members of the general public will be announced in the coming months. So stay tuned to This Week in Bigfoot for everything going on with not only Bigfoot, but the current UAP situation here in the United States and around the world.
Hey, this is Chuck Larson. You're watching the CARC channel on YouTube.
We were always taught to believe that hominins, the consolidated name for our extinct bipedal ancestors, originated and evolved in Africa. But an 8.7 million year old fossilized ape skull is challenging that long-held narrative. The skull of a newly discovered ape called, and I'm probably going to botch this name, Anadaluvius turcae, was found at a paleoanthropological site in Turkey, which dates back to the late Miocene era. It supports a newfound hypothesis that the forefathers of humans and apes may have actually evolved in Europe before migrating to Africa in the last 7 to 9 million years. An analysis of the fossil shows Mediterranean apes were very diverse and part of the first divergence among early hominins, which included the fossilized ancestors of humans and African apes. Scientists say that members of this divergence are currently only identified in Europe and Anatolia, aka the Asia Minor. These findings suggest that hominins spent over 5 million years evolving in Western and Central Europe before expanding eastward and eventually dispersing into Africa. These findings put Anadaluvius turcae in a part of the evolutionary tree that gave rise to chimpanzees, bonobos, gorillas, and humans. Anadaluvius and other fossil apes from Greece and Bulgaria form a group that most closely resemble the earliest known hominins. These newer fossils are among the best preserved specimens in this group of early hominins and provide the strongest evidence to date that they originated in Europe before dispersing into Africa. We previously mentioned how it's truly not uncommon to see long-held scientific beliefs turn out to be untrue or just part of the actual full story. Our widely accepted belief that the first humans and our hominid ancestors originated in Africa was mainly based on what information we had at the time. So remember what I mentioned in episode 25. We only have brief glimpses into about 2 to 3% of our entire history, with more than 97% still waiting to or will never be discovered. The fact that long-time narratives like Africa being the cradle of life, the fact that they're getting challenged in this manner, just goes to show that we truly know a lot less about our origins than we realize. It sheds light on how there's so much still unknown and undiscovered out there, and all it takes is for one discovery to completely rewrite everything we thought we knew, which only raises more questions and arguably makes the possibility of something like a Bigfoot existing that more conceivable.
It's time once again to bring you up to speed on a couple of recent Bigfoot podcasts and live streams. First in the box, Buckeye Bigfoot. Sasquatch hunted him for days on the trail. Here, a hiker tells a harrowing story of staying one step of an angry Bigfoot as he hiked the Pacific Crest Trail. Check it out.
So I take a couple steps towards the trail, and as I did so, I saw something out of the corner of my left eye. It had been there the whole time, I guess, but I hadn't noticed it. I saw the movement as it moved to stand behind a tree. I froze. I was confused. This thing was large, tall, and was very dark. What the bleep was it? Or who was it? Now, a strange thing happened to me when I saw this. All fear left me. I don't know where that fear went, but in its place came pure, red-hot anger. I was hungry, I was tired, and I was mentally exhausted. I felt like I was being hunted for somebody's sport, and I was being deliberately ran down to an exhausted state. I was furious. I yelled out to whoever it was, "What do you want from me, huh? What the bleep do you want?"
Next up, it's the return of Bigfoot and Beyond with Cliff and Bobo. Here, in a new question and answer format, the two well-known researchers field a series of questions from their viewers. Check it out.
Yeah, exactly. I was trying to find out where it was, because that's a golden opportunity for some footprints and follow-up. But I guess he got a chance to, maybe he went out there, maybe just talked to him on the phone. I don't really know.
I think he went there.
I have no idea. I don't know. But one of the loggers said that a couple people came out and looked around, and there were footprints in the ground, and nobody bothered casting them. He said they were beautiful footprints, and he said, "Oh, there's pictures," and I got them somewhere on one of my phones. I never saw them, so I don't know. Maybe the guy was just incorrect or lying or misremembering. Who knows? But yeah, apparently Bigfoot researchers went to the spot, saw beautiful footprints in the ground, and didn't bother casting them. Oh, that chaps my hide, Bobs.
Oh, me too. I got into a pretty big argument with Peter actually about that. I said, he's like, "Bigfoots don't vocalize," and I was like, "Dude, show me a primate that doesn't just blabber its head." I mean, primates all vocalize. It's like, I think all mammals vocalize.
It must have something to do with just his own personal interaction with the evidence. It just must. Maybe he doesn't believe other people. I don't know what it was, but clearly Mr. Byrne, in all due respect, was just incorrect about Sasquatches not being anywhere east of the Rockies. So it is what it is. It is what it is. But now he's dead. Now he knows. Whatever the truth is, I'm assuming he's in on the secret now. So good for him. Something we can all look forward to.
You think you learned that stuff in hell?
I don't know.
And batting cleanup this week, it's the Roundtable of Knowledge by How to Hunt. Here, Steve Isidol relays a story of an elk hunter who watched 3 Bigfoot stalk a herd of elk, all while going unnoticed. Check it out.
They definitely went black bear as the size was too big. And do black bears hunt together? They didn't notice me as I still had the wind in my face. I had a good cover and they didn't move. I observed these two things lift their heads up from a flat laying position in the grass and peek towards the herd of elk. I got momentary glimpses of them as they did this. My mind couldn't process what I was seeing. What were they? I kept thinking to myself. Whatever I saw earlier, I think was still over by the 3 trees laying low, but I didn't see them. I heard a couple of chirps like birds make. Then I heard another chirping sound from the area where I saw these two things. That made one of these things get up and move parallel to the herd of elk. Once again, this thing moved with such great speed and efficiency. It didn't crawl, but this time ran in a squatted position. It took up position about 100 yards away from the other one, and I lost sight of it. I then started to figure out that whatever was on the other side of the meadow was trying to drive the herd towards my side. Again, I heard what sounded like birds chirping, and I waited some sort of movement. Again, more chirping sounds came from across the meadow from me. This caused the lead cow to elk to switch her position to the opposite side of the herd. Again, I heard the chirping sounds. The one closest to me slowly rose up, using the trees as cover. It was on 2 feet, bent over at the waist, peeking out between the tree branches. I had my rifle scope on this thing and increased the power, and I could definitely see it was no bear. It was no man. It was at least 8 to 9 feet tall, and it had to weigh 800 pounds. His shoulders were back were wide and covered with matted hair. I would describe it as a buffalo standing on 2 feet minus the horns.
Labor Day weekend 2023 is now in the rearview mirror, which means fall can't be far behind. That being said, there's still only one guy week after week we can all turn to keep us up to speed on the who's, the what's, and the where's, and that's Chuck Larson with another great show in this week's Spotlight. '23 Whitehall Sasquatch Festival, September 30th, Whitehall, New York. Conference Spotlight.
The annual Whitehall, New York Sasquatch Festival and Calling Contest is on and is this week's Conference Spotlight. Happening at 10 a.m. Saturday, September 30th on Main Street along the Champlain Canal in Whitehall, New York, This free event runs until 6. Speakers start at 11:45 a.m. and are headlined by Steve Coles, Paul Bartholomew, and the Fourth Floor Team. A Q&A with the speakers is at 4 p.m., with the Sasquatch calling contest starting at 5. The calling contest is also free and will be divided into 2 categories, kids and adults, with Sasquatch-themed vendors and authors, food and a beer garden. Who can ask for more? Come on out and have a great time. For more information, you can go to the Visit Whitehall, New York webpage or the Sasquatch Calling Festival Facebook page. And that's this week's Conference Spotlight. Brendon, take us out.
All right, folks, once again, it pains me to say that we are all out of time for this week's episode. It sure does fly, doesn't it? Episode 27 is now in the books. I'd like to thank you for watching and remind you to like and share everything we do here at the Catskill Appalachian Research Collective. Tell your friends. It's very important to the success of our channel and to the success of This Week in Bigfoot. And if you have any questions or comments or maybe a news story for the show, you can always drop us a line at thisweekinbigfootnewscast@gmail.com. So, until next week, for Mike Luci and Chuck Larson, I'm Brendon Brown, reminding you that when it comes to getting your Bigfoot news, be informed, not biased. Take care. See you next week.